Welcome to the Anthropologist. Adversity does not build character, it reveals it. Now, that's a quote from the novelist James Allen. This is not the first time that artists have faced a global crisis. Throughout history, we've seen wars, pandemics, and other natural calamities alter the art world forever. Prior to World War II, Europe had been the center of the art world. If you wanted to be snubbed by the intelligentsia, you needed to take a boat ride and then a train ride all the way to Paris. But after Europe's leading artists and intellectuals fled across the Atlantic to America, being snubbed was only a car ride away to New York City. Further back, the great Renaissance master Titian, a contemporary and rival of Michelangelo, tragically died in the plague of 1576. His son Orazio, a great artist in his own right, he died as well. All throughout the 14th and 15th century, death was a common theme, as whole cities were wiped out in a matter of days. The imagery of a Hieronymus Bosch painting makes The Walking Dead look like a stroll through Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. But artists have also faced cultural upheavals. No sooner had the Impressionists won their battle for acceptance than the Post-Impressionists, then the Cubists, the Fauvists, and the Dadaists came along, one after the other after the other. One day you're the Fonz, the next day you're Napoleon Dynamite in a bad 70s leisure suit. You're no longer one of the cool kids. The advent of cheap printing enabled the rise of the golden age of illustration. From the 1880s to the 1920s, unprecedented opportunities were afforded artists like N.C. Wyeth, Norman Rockwell, Ralph Dana Gibson, and Kay Nielsen. They flourished. They became fabulously wealthy. But by the 1950s, even more improvements in printing and the explosion of photography crushed the illustration market. Artists who had amassed fortunes, wined and dined with celebrities and world leaders suddenly found themselves anachronisms and lost everything. But we painters, we got our revenge. For more than 50 years, photography reigned supreme until the advent of the digital age. Then the mighty fortress of photography was suddenly breached by the digital camera and computer software. In a word, desktop publishing was born. Everyone could be a professional photographer. Who needed the real professionals? And who can forget Walt Disney? On that long train ride from New York City back to Los Angeles, having lost everything, his creation, Oswald the Rabbit, his animators, and his contract with Universal Pictures. But rather than giving up on that long train ride, nearly in despair, he created Mickey Mouse. And I think we all know how that turned out. As artists, we live precarious lives. Few of us will ever have works that hang in the Louvre. Very few of us will ever be movie stars or play at the Grand Ole Opry. Most of us just hope to keep feeding our families doing the work we love. Global events like this seem almost insurmountable. And even after this quarantine is over, it really won't be over. If this were the only time the coronavirus raised its ugly head, it would still take many people decades to get past this loss that they've experienced. But if history is any indication, it will be back sooner than later, and possibly worse than this time. And we've got to decide what we're going to do about it. Are we going to give up, walk away, or are we going to adapt? Are we going to overcome, reinvent ourselves? If our world is changed, will we adapt to our new environment? During the reign of Cyrus the Great, God informs him that he will rebuild Solomon's temple and free the Jews. In the book of Ezra, the prophet writes, Yet many of the priests and Levites and heads of fathers' households, the old men who had seen the first temple, wept with a loud voice when the foundation of this house was laid before their eyes, while many shouted for joy. That's Ezra 3:12. To the younger ones, this was an exciting time. They had freedom, a new beginning, a new temple. But those who had seen the original temple, they were heartbroken. All they could focus on was what they had lost. I think the hardest time for me has been Sunday mornings missing church. My wife and I spend our Sundays watching our services on the computer, and it's just not the same, especially the singing. Instead of being in a church filled with over 1,000 people, their voices raised in praise to the Lord, it's just she and I. And there have been times when trying to sing those hymns, I would have to wipe away tears. For many of us, our professions, our very lives have changed irrevocably. And now we're faced with what Mr. Allen said. Adversity does not build character, it reveals it. So we make a choice. Do we hold on to a past that may never return, or do we reinvent ourselves and adapt to this new world? You know, who would have thought just a few weeks ago that this would be the new currency? Move over Bitcoin. This is the currency of the 21st century. Well, I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm going to take a sheet of this currency. I'm going to wipe my fanny. I'm going to wipe my tears. Who knows, I might get extravagant and use 2 instead of 1. But regardless, I'm going to take my new currency and I'm going to reinvent myself. I'm Bill Wilson, and I'm the arthropologist.